Hello, I packed an umbrella due to a forecast of rain. But stuff still happens. So what's up? Are you going to walk 500 miles? Possibly 500 more. The proclaimers proclaimed that they would be, and that's all cute and good, but it's also nowhere near enough in the year of our Lord 2026. If you want to be on the top of your romantic game, you gotta look to the humpback whale. And not just because of the humpback part. Scientists tracked two different humpback whales who both made a cross-globe journey from Australia to Brazil and the other way around. Here's the situation. There are like whale breeding grounds, right? Like, call them whale houses, off the coast of Australia and off the coast of Brazil. And they don't usually or ever really have any kind of cross-pollination. But two different whales, one from each region, I guess got bored of the talent in that area and decided to go across the planet to the other one. Both of these whales traveled over 14,000 kilometers. One of them traveled over 15,000 kilometers, setting a new record for most traveled whale or something like that. So that's rad. Cool. Yay. Whales did some trading places. Neat. How do we know that? The answer is actually super rad. The scientists who were researching this used nearly 20,000 civilian scientists submitted photos of whales. Basically, people who like whales were like, hey, I took pictures of whales. Here they are. It's a bit more than that, but basically, whale tails are like fingerprints. If we can get a picture of a whale's tail, we can probably figure out who they are if we've seen them before. So they took the images, they took the metadata of when the image was taken and where, ran it through a bunch of software to try to identify these different whale tails, and they figured out the plot of these different whales going across the world. The exact route they took is not well known. It's kind of like we saw them here this year, and like 5 years later, we saw them over here. It's not like we knew every single step they took, or swim they swam. The prevailing theory around how these whales did the thing was via the Southern Ocean Exchange, which is a whale thing. I guess there's like a feeding ground in the Antarctic, and whales of all types from all around the world might meet up there. And maybe these whales kind of met some new friends and they're like, yo, you want to come back to my place? It's in Brazil. So the next time that you want to do something romantic for your sweetie, and you're considering doing some big gesture, look to the humpback whales. Jump into the ocean in Australia and swim to Brazil. Otherwise, you're not even trying. Step it up. All right, hold on to that fun whale story, because now we're going to talk about hunger-striking detainees in ICE detention centers. Delaney Hall is a detention center in New Jersey that supports, as they say, about 1,000 beds. I really dislike framing the number of human beings we can pack into a detention center with no due process as beds. At this detention center, around 300 of the detainees have started a hunger strike, protesting against the awful and inhumane conditions they're being held in. They are being forced to live and work in utterly absurd conditions. Spoiled, rotten food with worms in it. No toilet paper. Basically no medical oversight. People with cancer, unable to get medical attention. They are trying to sound the alarm using the only lever they have, which is going on a hunger strike. And they are already malnourished. They're already underfed. Delaney Hall is operated by Geo Group, which is a private prison contractor that's made billions off of the Trump administration's efforts to detain thousands upon thousands of migrants. It is a for-profit, privately owned detention center for immigrants and whoever else ICE decides to label an immigrant without due process. Because again, if there's no due process, there's no way to prove that you're innocent. Mark Wayne Mullen, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, had this to say about the hunger strike in one of his facilities. Quote, "There is no hunger strike at Delaney Hall at this time." Cool. Now, Marky Wayne might have a bit of a point here. If you take a hammer and bash yourself over the head with it about 100 times, it starts to make a little bit of sense. This is because he's technically not lying, because per the DHS, the definition of a hunger strike doesn't start until the 72nd hour of not having food, and it wasn't long enough then. So per their record keeping, technically it's not. Well done, guys, you solved the problem. Protesters outside Delaney Hall have been trying to just impede ICE on doing the bullshit that's harming these people. The protesters tried to stop ICE from transferring the person who started the strike, trying to undermine the entire thing. Recently among the protesters was New Jersey Senator Andy Kim, who was hit with pepper spray, fired by ICE agents. They were just unloading pepper spray bullets into the protesters who were there protesting the inhumane conditions that we are holding immigrants in, with no due process. And they were like, nah, we're gonna shoot you with pepper spray. So they pepper sprayed the crowd, including a sitting U.S. senator. The governor of New Jersey also tried to go check out the situation. Governor Mickey Sherrill showed up, tried to be like, hey, I'm trying to see what's going on in here because the reports and the audits are not good. To which they said, shove it. They didn't let her in. They barred access. The governor of this state was not allowed access to a government facility run through a private contractor holding 1,000 people in the state that she runs. Now, again, technically, that's the law. Technically, I would argue, that's fucking stupid. States' rights, except for when we want to do human rights violations within your state. There's something very important here that I want to mention, which is this is not new. This has been going on, and I don't just mean over the past couple of years, and I don't just mean under the Trump presidency, and I don't just mean under the second Trump presidency or the first Trump presidency. This has been going on for decades, including Obama, who you might recall earned himself the nickname Deporter-in-Chief. ACLU investigations show evidence of hunger strikes and force-feeding inmates in various facilities dating back to 2012, and that's just what they could find. Of course, now it's a bit different because the current administration is actively using this as a fear tactic in addition to trying to ramp it up as much as possible with the express intent seemingly to be as mean as possible and as awful as possible to these people. Also, they can sate the bloodlust that they've been running on as their political platform. And so here we are. Our government is still disappearing people, now at over 1,000 people a day, into facilities where they are treated with no basic human dignity. And then when they're asked about the inhumane conditions, they're like, what inhumane conditions? And when they're really pressed on it, they try to argue that it's better than most jails in the US, which is not helpful. If you're going to be out protesting at one of these facilities, please be safe, loud, and make sure people know where you are. People that you trust. That is. Hey, thank you so much for being here. If you like what I do, you like this show and all that good stuff, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share. All that really, really does help. If you want to check out my Patreon and other ways to support me, you can head to isupport.dev where you'll find links to everything. Regardless, thank you for being here. Let's move on. Are you trans? If you answered yes, hi. If you answered no, also hi. Regardless, trans rights are human rights, and we all benefit from having a basic understood set of shared rights. Anyway, we're not doing that. It is not a stretch to say that the US has been on a bit of a tear with anti-trans legislation. Maybe not as much as some other countries, but pretty bad. Between all the bathroom bills and the trans sports in school bills, it's a lot. And it's having measurable negative impact more than just on the trans community. And I'll get to that in a second, but we are expecting two pretty big Supreme Court decisions by the end of June, both which have to do with trans girls in sports. I'm talking here specifically about like in school, like middle and high school. Little versus Hecox and West Virginia versus BPJ are two fairly similar cases that were both heard in January, and we're expecting to hear results within a month. They are both spun out of a teenager who was just trying to play some sports in school and now is at the Supreme Court arguing for that right. Now, you've probably heard of West Virginia. You probably haven't heard of BPJ. That's because BPJ are the initials of the minor who had to take this to the Supreme Court. When I was like a 15-year-old trying to navigate school, I was just wavering between like figuring out how to make friends and furiously masturbating. And I didn't even have to go to the Supreme Court to do it. Well, that's privilege. 27 states have passed anti-trans sports legislation, and it leads to some fucked up scenarios, including trying to launch investigations into children's genitals. That thing that has been like slightly joked about of like, how are you going to enforce this? What, you're going to make them drop their pants? The answer is kind of yeah. We already saw an investigation of a teenage girl who they got a tip that someone thought she was trans, and it resulted in an investigation into her medical history and biology. This is just a random teenage girl. No human in this country should have the government investigating their current biological state for any reason, let alone this. But apparently, high school and middle school sports are that important that we have to throw away all notions of privacy. In Arizona, and this doesn't even have a trans student in it, a cisgender male student wanted to go onto the basketball team, but was stopped because there was a clerical error with his birth certificate. His birth certificate accidentally said female when he was not. And that was it. but it was enough to prevent him from joining the basketball team altogether. The actual response from the school district about why the fuck they did this was that our schools rely on students' original birth certificate at birth to determine athletic eligibility. Here's how birth works. Your mom poops you out, right? Right out the butt. And then the doctor takes you, spanks you, and then asks you, what kind of sports are you good at? If you don't answer then and there, you are eternally barred from those sports. Also, you can't be a woman. It is estimated that trans people make up somewhere between 1 and 3% of the population, and we have spent millions upon millions of dollars and untold man hours putting through legislation to attack a single-digit number of trans students. All the while, there's no actual evidence of it being dangerous for a trans student to participate in whatever gendered sport they want. And also, it's fucking middle and high school sports. Get the fuck over it. I know it's bad faith. I know no one actually gives a shit about the sports angle and protecting the kids in their sports or whatever. Just stop being transphobic. Like, it's so easy. It's so easy to just not do that. We could save time, money, energy, lives by simply just saying, oh, you're trans? Cool. This affects me in no way. Oh, you're a trans 14-year-old and you want to play basketball? Okay. There's virtually no way that you have an advantage over any other student. You're fucking 14. Never mind puberty. Now I'm just going on a rant. People have puberty at different ages. What the fuck does it matter at this point? It's in high school. You can have a 16-year-old who's teeny tiny and a 16-year-old who's like 7 feet tall. Anyway, eat shit. Panels of old white men banging gavels and saying that certain children can't do certain things because of their genitals. Get bent, eat shit, die, etc. Do you want a job? Most of us do. Don't try to go in the tech industry, or do. It's pretty much every other week that I feel like I'm talking about a massive tech layoff. And so this week I wanted to do a bit of digging and aggregate some numbers for you. And then I started aggregating the numbers, and the numbers got really big. If we look at layoffs in the tech industry from just this year, in fact, just this month, we have Coinbase laying off 14% of its workers, about 700 people. LinkedIn laying off 5% of its workers, around 875 people. Cisco laying off 4,000 people. PayPal laying off 20%, about 4,760. Cloudflare laying off 20% at about 1,100 people. Ticketmaster laying off 8% at about 350 people. Groupon did not know they were still around, laying off 25% at 400 people. Intuit laying off 17% at 3,000 people. Wix laying off 20% at 1,000 people. And now Meta is starting their next wave of layoffs. It's going to be about 8,000 people who are receiving emails at 4 a.m. local time, telling them you don't have a job anymore. That was May. So far. And also, that was not an exhaustive list. I left out the companies that most people would not recognize. That was just the flagship companies. There's like at least twice as much. According to CNBC, the layoffs so far this year have crossed 150,000 jobs, with over 130 companies doing these layoffs. If you check out layoffs.fyi, you can get a whole bunch more info. And if you combine 2026 and 2025's numbers, you get nearly 250,000 tech jobs that got laid off, which almost scrapes at 2023's numbers, which saw over 260,000 in 1 year. Granted, that year was a little bit different because there was a lot of quote-unquote right-sizing after a lot of companies did tons of hiring at the beginning of the pandemic. Basically, every company was like, oh, we'll hire eternally and have record profits forever. Oh, shit. My profits. These layoffs are not uniformly because any one reason. And I would encourage you to be very skeptical whenever you see that a layoff happened because AI. Because the reality is, it's just not there. The productivity gains that these companies really want to have happen, that they just tell everybody is happening, aren't really happening. And it's not leading to the point that we can lay off tens of thousands of people at a time and see gains. It's about adjusting their numbers, doing stock buybacks, getting headcount by profit numbers better. It's all that crap. And in some cases, yeah, they do need to downsize. But my goodness, there's been so much downsizing that companies are starting to turn back around and being like, okay, actually, let's see if we can hire those people back because we kind of jumped the gun. So it is both a bad time and a good time to get into the tech industry because they're laying everybody off, but realizing that's a bad call. I'm now realizing, having just said that, Don't get in the tech industry. That sounds toxic as fuck. And I used to be in that industry and got out before all this hit. And I don't know what I would do if I had to go back. Anyway, lightning round. Speaking of AI, Pope Leo dropped a pretty scathing review of the current state of AI. A wholly scathing review. Here's the weather. This isn't as recent, but I do want to have an update on this. You may remember a while back, I talked about the heist at the Louvre, where they stole a bunch of crown jewels from France. Those still haven't been returned. Investigators just don't know where they are. So, there was a chemical plant in California that very nearly exploded. It triggered an evacuation of 50,000 people. It didn't explode. It didn't explode. It nearly did. It didn't. And finally for today, autonomous car company Waymo is suspending its operations in a bunch of southeastern states after there was footage of their cars driving directly into flooded streets. That privilege is reserved for us humans now. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what your company is going to make fully autonomous next. My name is Endeavorance. We'll talk again soon. Take care and be well.